Conversations hosted by the Autodesk community. My name is Chris Benner, and I'm going to be your community host today. Today's session marks the return of Ask the Expert, which used to take place in our discussion forums. And today it is my distinct pleasure to welcome the talented Mike Thomas, who's going to be answering all of your burning inventor questions.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody.
So we're going to start off with some quick introductions. Like I said, my name is Chris. I'm the community manager for product design and manufacturing here at Autodesk, and I have been with Autodesk exactly 1 year today. Before joining the team, I was a customer and a user for over 20 years, including AutoCAD, Inventor, and Vault. I was a member of the Expert Elite program starting in 2012, and I've spoken at Autodesk University so many times now that I lost count. I think it's 13, maybe 14. And for several of those times, I had the privilege of standing alongside our expert speaker today, Mr. Thomas, as co-speaker. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Mike real quick to introduce himself, and then I'm going to come back and take care of some housekeeping slides before we let him take center stage for the rest of the session. Mike?
Thanks, Chris. So yeah, Chris and I are sort of an AU success because we met at AU and we've presented multiple times at AU, and we keep in contact. So we're kind of an Autodesk University success story that way.
Community in action.
Community in action. So my background, I'm a mechanical engineering technologist. Straight out of school, I started working for an Autodesk reseller. So at that time, it was AutoCAD and Mechanical Desktop. It was what the main products that I was supporting, and then from there, transitioned into Inventor. And I've been using Inventor since before it was called Inventor. So I've touched every single version and flavor of Inventor over the 20 plus years it's been around. And then also during that time, I started doing some data management with Vault and other products. And about 10 years ago, I transitioned into a unique role with a mining equipment manufacturer called Prairie Machine. So I'm now the technical services manager. I was essentially hired to get the engineering department in order because there were a bunch of hooligans, I guess. And we've got Inventor and we've got Vault and we've got various other Autodesk technologies intermingled with our ERP and everything else that falls under my umbrella. So as you can see on the slide, I'm also an Autodesk Expert Elite. Not quite as long as Chris, because I think Chris was the first Expert Elite, I think, and pretty close. I came a little bit further, or longer away, but I've been Autodesk Expert Elite as well.
All right. So we're going to start with some housekeeping here. First of all, everyone's line is muted. That'll reduce all the background noise. We do invite you, if you are comfortable to do so, to leave your camera on so we can see your beautiful faces. If you do have a question during the session, use the raise hand function and one of us will unmute you or send you an invitation to unmute yourself, and then you can ask your question. You can also place your questions in the chat window and we will be keeping an eye on that throughout the session too. The session is being recorded and will be emailed to all attendees and also uploaded to our community conversations site. Please note that by participating in this session, you are consenting to being recorded. Very quickly, we want to throw up our safe harbor statement. Wow. If we make any forward-looking statements in this session, please do not use those to make any purchasing decisions. If you're going to make any purchasing decisions on this software, look at it in its state today and only that.
Oh, and don't forget, I don't work for Autodesk, so you can't take anything I say as being official Autodesk stats on anything.
That is correct. So just a little bit about our community conversation series. This series provides opportunities for engineers, designers, artists, and makers to meet in a safe, live, virtual setting to share expertise, get to know leaders in their field, and grow their community network. The sessions are always supported by Autodesk community managers to help guide the conversation, feed important insights back from the community to Autodesk, and support participants in getting connected to the expertise they need. So I've talked enough. I'll be back at the end of the session with a few closing notes. But for now, take it away, Mike. I'm going to
Great.
stop sharing my screen. There we go.
So I think what we should start with, Chris, is we should start with some of the questions that have already come in. And I think we should start with Alan's question.
Okay.
I'm going to try to summarize it a little bit. So Alan's works for a company that is transitioning from AutoCAD into Inventor, and they're not using Vault. So he's wondering what's the best method of maintaining revisions, which is an excellent question. I guess the first thing is you're not using Vault, but I would definitely recommend to at least explore Vault. However, if you're going to go into the true revision management aspect of it, you're going to want to start at least with Vault Workgroup, because Vault Basic, the one that comes with Inventor, just does versioning and it doesn't do revision management. So the first thing, if you want like true legit revision management, you should look at Vault Workgroup. Now, if we just look at Inventor on its own, or AutoCAD on its own, or Microsoft Word on its own, or anything like that, you're essentially going to be restricted to naming your files. So if you want to maintain, the older revisions, then you're going to want to name those files. But the problem with Inventor now is that you have all these part files and assemblies and presentations and drawings and all these things. So one system that I've seen that works is almost more of an architectural process where you look at more of an archiving process. So right when you're ready to go into the next revision, you would do, let's say, a pack and go, and you would pack and go and take all those files and you would put them in some location and you would tag them as, Rev 1, Rev 2, or a date or however you want, and then you would essentially go into the files and start making your changes. So the files themselves are always the current build, the current revision, and you just maintain it that way. And then at certain points in time, when you want to capture that for historical reason, you pack and go it, or however you do it, and you put that into a location. So probably not quite the answer that Alan was hoping for. He's probably hoping for some magic button in Inventor to click and do the revisions. That magic button is Vault Workgroup. Otherwise, then you got to look at some type of, I'm Canadian, so we'll call it stick handling. You got to look for some type of way to stick handle it around the revision process.
I think I would add to that, Mike, if you're going to do this in Inventor, come up with a plan and document it well, because it's going to be like herding cats to try to keep everybody adhering to the same policy.
We when I started here at Prairie, the idea was to put everything onto the network, so that it was backed up, because the idea was, we're not going to back up the local systems, we're going to back up what's on the server. So what would happen is people would put the assemblies and such on the server, and then they would copy it local when they were working on it, and they would put it back. Well, you can imagine how quickly that system fell apart, because it was kind of herding cats is a good way of describing that. So we quickly moved to Vault when I started here, and it's helped along a lot. Okay, what should we do next? Should we go to Pete's question? We should go to Pete's question, because he's sitting there so patiently. He smiled at my jokes.
He's rubbing his hands together now,
Yeah.
so he's ready. So all right, well let's tackle Pete then.
So
don't tackle me too hard. My knees are sore today from basketball, but no. So I just got into 2022. I was wrapping up some 2021 stuff. I know the model states have kind of been in the works for a few versions now, and it seemed like it was ready to release. So, and I'm a fan. I like it. I think there are some advantages to having everything in one file, but I've just started to test this, and I've noticed, as kind of expected, as you add more model states and as those model states become more complex, the file size increases. And I was just curious if you, not to put you on the spot at all, Mike or Chris, but if anybody's done any testing on like, when does that start to become more of a challenge versus using an iPart? Because iParts had their imperfections as well, but at least the file sizes weren't super big. So I'm just curious if you have any kind of benchmarking. I've not done that personally yet on keep
Yeah.
it around like 10 model states, don't get crazy. I'm just wondering if anybody's done anything with that.
Well, that's a very good question. It's a bit loaded. I like it.
Wasn't intentionally loaded. I'm legit curious. So.
I think with the model states and how it opens up so many different avenues, you almost have to kind of look at it as, if I've got a part and all I'm doing is managing iProperties through the model state, then the net impact on the file size is zero. If it's a part file and it's like one has a hole and one doesn't, again, but I know where you're going with this. You're going, I got an assembly and I'm swapping out parts and I've got all these parts and features and everything. I can't say I've done a lot of testing on it, but I do know what you're saying is when during the beta cycle when this came out, where I'm like, okay, let's see the differences. And I did some simple tests, like something that had like 10 iterations in it compared to the other one. And it was really a net like zero.
Okay.
Like compared like the iAssembly with all its members compared to the model state. And the model state was slightly less, but like I said, I only did maybe 2 or 3 assemblies that way just to see. Now on your question about how many, that one I can't really say because I haven't really pushed it. I haven't seen anything. I know that if you kind of take a look at Autodesk's stance on it, I would say that the future of iParts and iAssemblies is not going to go anywhere. Just because of all the legacy that's on that and all the people that have all these iParts, all these assemblies, that functionality is going to be there. And there's definitely some places where it's useful. It's like, if you're building a collection of let's say bolts, let's say bolt library. I know it's in the content center, but it's a collection.
Sure.
Actually, the content center is a great spot because you can't take a part with a model state and publish that to the content center. It's
interesting.
I'd not tried that. Oh. If you wanted to go in there with all the variations of it, and the same thing, like if I'm modeling a bolt and I want to have a library of bolts, I'd be better off as an iPart because then I end up with all the different children parts to utilize. So it's definitely a kind of a grayish area in there, but like model states is more for the configuration and I'd say like documentation of things. Whereas the iParts are definitely more for I guess a true library of definition. So one thing I'm happy with is I don't know if you're a Vault user, but for us as Vault users, iParts and iAssemblies were not great in Vault. They were difficult to move around and manage and stuff, whereas the model states, with the changes they made to Vault, they just seamlessly roll in and it manages it. So
Mike, we got Andrew's gonna give some insight on this as well.
Yeah, thanks. So before I address it, I just want to acknowledge that I have a couple more colleagues joining, Johnson, Chris Mitchell, and Dan. If feel free, these guys actually may have better perspective on the model states question than I do, but they were just joining as you were wrapping up, Mike. So I just want to repeat the question from, was it Pete?
Yes.
Yeah, he had a couple of questions. One was a question about file size, so model states versus iParts and iAssemblies. And I had just said, like, the very little testing I did, it was almost a net zero between the two of them.
Yeah, so I just real quick. So I'm a user experience designer on the Inventor team. Just quick intro. I've been with Autodesk since 2003, and I was with the reseller before that. So I've got about as much experience as Mike and Chris. I wasn't working on the model states team directly. I think Johnson was, so he might have some good insight here. I can't speak directly to the file size question, but what I can say is the model states implementation was not really implemented to optimize to replace iParts. So the team evaluated replacing iParts fully with model states. So there's certainly continues to be a legitimate solution for iParts, as you guys were alluding to, and that would be primarily with family of parts. I would continue to use family of parts. I would use iParts to solve that problem, not necessarily because of the file size, but just because it's a proven system, and model states was really optimized for something else. Model states was really optimized for machining states. It solves a lot of problems, but it's really optimized to kind of replace the derived workflow for machining states, among other things. But iParts and iAssemblies, as you said, are still there and will likely to be there indefinitely. Chris or Johnson or Dan, you may have some other insights there as well.
And Pete's other question was just really call it a concern about the number of model states and when a person should start being considerate about the impact on performance. And I had just said, well, it kind of depends on what you're doing. If you're just managing iProperties, then you could have umpteen number of model states. But he was more concerned about I've got an assemblies and I'm suppressing parts and suppressing features, and if there's any like recommendations around that from an Autodesk standpoint.
I mean, theoretically, part and component suppression is very lightweight, because those assemblies are just references out to other models. So I would say for assemblies, it theoretically should have very little impact. You might get a little bit more of an impact if you're talking about model states with parts, because there you're talking about possibly full bodies, and those bodies are a little bit heavier. But this is all just theoretical. I mean, experiences may vary based on your hardware.
Right.
You want to add something, Johnson?
Yes. So in terms of file size, I think just think about model states kind of like files within files. So each state, it's like a mini file. And then, so if you look at, if you use a 7-zip or whatever compress tool, you can look into file, and then you see the so-called local storage. And those store the model state data on a per model state basis. So if you are talking about model size, the file size, I would say, yes, it will definitely increase. And then, so for example, if you have 5 model states, likely it will be like a 5 additional or 4 additional IAM files or IPT, depends on it's IPT or IAM. And
yeah,
but
I was noticing that as well. So
right,
okay, that makes sense.
That's just the way it works. Yeah, that's just the way it works. Yep. And then I personally prefer, if you use a model state, you don't use express mode, because that would just make it bigger, right? I mean, and model state is not meant to be used in a large assembly, anyways.
Okay.
So yeah. So that I would take a little bit caution. And in terms of performance, I don't think we notice any significant performance impact.
Okay.
If you activate model state, but if you notice, please let us know. And then in terms of the number of roles, I would say, right, number of model states, I wouldn't overuse it. I mean, just like iPart assembly, you don't want like 1,000, 10,000s of roles. Yeah, it's gonna slow, anyways. And then in terms of columns, in terms of columns, actually, we used to have 256 column limit, and recently we just found out, because of model state project, we break that limit. So now it's 16,384 columns. So essentially, it's almost like unlimited. Yeah,
That sounds like a challenge for you, Pete.
No, I'll stay under that. That won't be a problem.
I definitely don't recommend you add that many. You will go crazy.
Just coming up with 16,000 will make me go crazy. So
yeah.
So just to sum up, and I didn't mean to hog all the time, but I just anticipate I've got people that have really large tables, and I push them into the content center a lot because iParts are so slow.
Sure.
So what I'm hearing is this is best suited for manufacturing. So when you think about like a part, it's your different machining states. We've been looking at it at D3 a lot for our progressive tooling people. So lots of different sheet metal bends, and this is how we stage that. It sounds like that's probably more the ideal use. And I think, Chris, you said it well. If we're still going to have like 400 bolts and we're going to put it in a family, that's still best used as an I part. Am I understanding everybody correctly there?
Yeah, I believe so. I think iParts iAssembly, they were designed to create library components and reuse it. You know, so essentially you author and you pretty much freeze, you know, if they are released and they just need to be reused. And you don't want to modify it. And I think the trouble, the so-called problem with the Vault is more like you keep editing. You keep editing the member, you edit the factory. You sometimes you even use iPart iAssembly as a skeletal source. So that creates a whole lot update chain, right? And then and then as you know, iPart iAssembly is like a factory and the derive relationship, right? So it gets really messy and tricky. And but I think if you just keep using it as library components, yes, it should be used as such.
Okay, I really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, Pete. On a related question, Nick posted in the chat that he has not found a way to see model states in the vault.
So he also mentioned there that he doesn't use items. So
Correct.
all you're going to see in Vault on the file is there's a property. I think has model states, and it's just going to be an icon that says there's model states on that. But he's correct; you can't see those.
You can't see the actual model state.
Now, if your model states are generating different part numbers or whatever value you use to make them unique, when you do assign items, you are going to get individual items for all the ones for different part numbers. So
if you want to see those different part numbers, you have to use items.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
Nick has said he can't find a way. He's correct. All you can do is just look for that property. I'm pretty sure it has model state, and that'll show you if the file has model states. But that is what you can see.
And so the part number is only distributed through the items, or
Inside Vault, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're on the part, they're on the model state, but you can only see them in Vault if you're using the item.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, Mike, do we want to move back to the questions that came in beforehand?
Sure.
I think we have
You've
one
got one in the
from,
chat, Chris, from
sorry?
Marcelo. You've got one in the chat from Marcelo?
Yeah, I'm going to go to his next.
Okay, sorry.
Hang in there, Marcelo. We're getting to you. This next one was from Michael, and it says he has two questions on 2020 version. First question was, is it possible to rotate a drawing view, including the dimensions?
No.
No? That's an easy yes, no question.
Because it's going to rotate the view and then try to
reposition
the dimensions.
And also the dimensions will be different, right? I mean,
yeah,
we do distinguish horizontal, vertical, line. So no, there's no workload.
And that's just not 2020 specific. That's like
all version.
All of them. Yeah.
Yep.
That may answer the second part of his question also, which is when I change component in an assembly, the text dimensions on the assembly drawings are moving, and why? And that may be the same thing. It's because it's referencing different geometry now.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because it's like I was pointing to A, but now A is not there, and you want it to go to B, and Inventor's just going, I don't know, and then you need to reassociate them. So it's essentially doing it, I would say, as designed. If I'm gonna speak in Autodesk lingo, I'm gonna say it's as designed, and that's how it's supposed to work.
All right, do we want to jump to Marcelo's question then?
Sure. It looks like Marcel is going to have to give us some more details about
I
his
think so.
question.
So he has a question about Inventor to Revit interoperability and Inventor API. So want to elaborate a little bit, Marcelo?
Yeah, hello, everyone.
How you doing, by the way?
Oh, good, thanks. Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so first of all, I'm the first to admit I'm new to Inventor. I don't really know the program very well at all. I float around Revit and the other products, and mostly the AEC industry and you know, that kind of realm. So there is some crossover when I have to deal with Inventor. We work with architects or clients who have built, let's just put in quotes, things inside of Inventor, and we need to interact with them and pull information out and so on. So a lot of my questions revolve around interoperability. This particular example we were looking at was a lot of structural framing was modeled inside of Inventor, and we needed to get it in a meaningful way into Revit. So I understood Inventor 2022 had a better interface with Revit, allowed to, I'm going to put in quotes, export information out of Inventor into Revit. But we found that it wasn't very meaningful. I mean, such that when this information came in, the families in Revit were under like generic models, and there was no real way to control any of that as it was being brought into Inventor. So I guess my big question is, first of all, let me back up. I understand you, like with MEP families and so on, it's much more robust in getting intelligent information from Inventor into Revit, at least from the research I did. But with more simplified elements, the interoperability seems to work really well if you're interested in visualization, maybe coordination. But in terms of being able to bring that information in and document it in Revit and tag it and things you need to do within Revit, it seems to be less robust in that area. Is this something, first of all, am I correct in what I said? Maybe I'm doing something wrong. And second, is there plans to make that more meaningful in the future? That's my first question.
I mean, I can comment on the first part. I'm kind of the opposite to you. Use Inventor, only dabbled in Revit, but you nailed it there in that the tools from Inventors, you can essentially publish the model and you can add in information, but it's definitely focused around MEP. So you can put the connection information and stuff like that. It's definitely around that area. And the changes in 2022 is really to better, I guess, associate the models so that you're not necessarily like truly exporting, you're just simply linking the Revit model in Inventor, and that way if they change, they update in both places.
Mm-hmm.
To comment on if that's going to get better, I'm just going to guess that Autodesk is going to say yes, but perhaps one of the Autodesk gentlemen on the call here can comment on that.
Okay. I switch cameras on you. Yeah, that's one reason I'm here. Is I was actually out on my walk and I saw it. I was like, oh, the developers are going to be there. I better get over there. We have Johnson here and Andrew, so I thought I'd bring it up.
Did you switch cameras just so we could see your lightsabers?
Yes. No, I didn't. But this is the normal one I use. But yes, I do have a
lightsabers.
lightsaber collection in the back. Yes, it's very nerdy, but I'm okay with that. Yep. Cool. If you can name every one of them, you get a gold star.
Oh.
But yeah, totally. So yeah. We're all friends here. So, okay. So if maybe what I'll say is, if that's the case, I'm okay with that. I just thought maybe I was doing something wrong. The fact that things come in as quote unquote generic models in Revit is less meaningful in the way it needs to be used, maybe downstream. Coordination, like you said, visualization, overlaying things, make sure things aren't sticking out is good. Maybe because I have the developers here, or Johnson, I see you there, and Andrew. The reality is I work for a structural design company, and then some of you probably know I teach classes all over the planet. Well, virtual now, but anyway. So I'm always trying to preach the message on interoperability. what I'm finding is that more firms are starting to use Inventor to do modeling for non-building components or doing simple studies in certain areas. So Inventor's creeping into the AEC industry in a big way, particularly in architects or ones that aren't like the architects of record. Anyway, so it's creeping into the industry. So I'm just going to say in general that this is probably something that's going to be needed more and more as you move forward. That's my comment. Okay, so I imagine we don't have any. We're still working on the interoperability issue. And if you want to contact me and we can go over what is quote unquote meaningful and what is not, I would love to have those conversations with you. Okay, next, because I want to take up a lot of time, is my immediate reaction when I saw the that information coming into Revit from Inventor 2022 into Revit 2022. I saw that it's generic models, and so there's not as it's not as meaningful because it needs to be documented, it needs to be tagged and so on. My immediate reaction was, oh, what I'll do then is I'll start to tap the Inventor API. I could write some interoperability nodes with Dynamo, and I would solve all this problem. Well, when I started looking at the Inventor API, my immediate reaction was, oh, it was going to be easy for me to learn it and step into it because I've done a lot of work with the Revit API, as well as connecting like Dynamo up with other databases like AutoCAD and other things. So first of all, my general comment is I tried to do research on the Inventor API. I learned a little bit about iLogic. I watched just about every class at Autodesk University that was ever given. I watched just about every YouTube video that was ever done on the Inventor API. And I still came back to the same conclusion, which was I found it very difficult to wrap my head around how to step into it from an outside program, like being Dynamo. And the API being sensitive to how the new computational design tools work, like Dynamo, where you're constantly changing values, you're constantly stepping in and out, you're constantly opening and closing. And so my general comment is, are there plans with the Inventor API? First of all, am I kind of right in what I just said? Is that kind of the general thing? That's one, just my general feeling about the Inventor API. That's one. Two, are there any plans to make it more maybe easier to comprehend? Because what we're finding, especially in the AEC industry, is that APIs are no longer being used by developers, because originally APIs were developed by developers for developers. But what we're finding is that even like common architects and such need to tap the API, make custom things, make customized whatever, whether they can link it with Dynamo or whatever. So that is not really the case anymore, with developers being the ones that are tapping the API. So my general question is, are there plans to update the Inventor API such that it becomes a bit more user-friendly or easy to kind of step in and out of? I know that was a lot.
So I guess what I could comment on is the iLogic comment.
Yeah.
And like iLogic, I mean, it was an acquired company, Canadian company, by the way. But the idea with that is essentially like, let's call it VBA for dummies, right? It's like, we're going to put this Visual Basic into Inventor and allow you to do things with your Inventor models. So call it configurations, maybe pull from a spreadsheet, but it wasn't really intended for all that type of external touching here, touching there, touching that. So it's like I'm in Inventor and I want some things to turn off, turn on. I want to do some drawing automation. Maybe I want to automatically export things out to PDF. That's what's intended for. So your comments are right that, the API and programming is not just for developers anymore. That's what iLogic is. I think you're just wanting to do more because of your experience with Dynamo than what iLogic's really intended for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, you hit it. And I got that impression when I was learning iLogic, that it was really hard to kind of crack that shell from exterior places. So I thought, okay, now I'm going to try to learn the Inventor API. And then when I started tapping into that, I started, I couldn't get really far.
That's outside my realm of expertise there a little bit. I mean, I've dabbled in some .NET or not .NET, some C# and stuff like that, but outside my realm of expertise there.
Now, my comment is, I'm sure it's entirely possible. maybe what I recommend is a good solid example of how to get something external talking with the Inventor API, or maybe that exists and I just don't know. So that would be extremely helpful.
I want to jump in really quick.
Yeah,
My name is Dan Szymanski.
Dan.
I also with Autodesk with a number. Mike's crushing it. Mike, thanks for answering the questions. And that's why I was kind of remaining quiet, because Mike, you're just answering each thing perfectly. However, the notion of this community and talking is just about, what's available today, what can we get to, and then there's a number of questions of what's the future, what's next. Those are always tough things, and of course we're always trying to make the product more robust and improve upon the things. And Mike, you nailed it with the iLogic. It is that user interface. We are doing planning some things with making iLogic more consistent and the user experience. We just made it with we just enhanced dark theme and ported it over to the, that's a silly UI type of a paradigm shift of light and dark theme. But we're just also trying to improve some of those usability pieces. But it's difficult. I know there was a safe harbor statement at the beginning of this session. You don't want to necessarily spend all the time talking about what's next or what's the future. Same thing with Revit interoperability as well. This is new technology. We started a couple of years back with that approach. Model states is also new. We have some thoughts and ideas of how we could expand those capabilities, extending support further to as the interop workflows and as the consumption of model states takes shape, and as people or architects start using this associative workflows to keep making it more robust. So I want to try to stay away from the future casting. We do have a beta community that we could plug as well to engage there. We can be much more freely discussing. You can kind of start seeing how what the shape of the product is going to be headed that way. But no, I just wanted to comment and just say, we're looking at a number of things. It's difficult to answer in these types of forms. We're just trying to keep it flowing. So
I guess we can summarize. We can summarize Marcella's question with iLogic is for internal Inventor development, and he's been spoiled with Dynamo.
Yeah. Marcella, if you're interested, I can send you a link to the beta. And
that would be great. I would like that, because I would love to be part of the solution. I'm not just here to complain about what's going on. So I would love to be part of the solution and add some recommendations. And I think the Inventor program is extremely robust, and I'm very impressed. I think as we move forward, we'd want to not leave anyone out. And I think if we can move in that direction, thinking about how being more exposed, I suppose, with the API, maybe even iLogic has its own API that you can tap, whatever. But I want to be part of the solution, so I'm totally up for it. So thanks for your comments. Keep up the good work.
Marcello, I do have a few comments.
Oh,
so
yes,
I think,
Johnson.
yes. So first of all, disclaimer, I'm not an API expert or iLogic. I just know very fundamental basics. So there's a really vibrant API community. It's called Inventor Customization. So there are tons of experts, Inventor API experts there. So feel free to go there and ask questions, as many as you want. Okay. And then in terms of iLogic, I think for a new user, it could be a little bit overwhelming. But once you get past that learning curve, actually, it's really powerful, to be honest. I mean, I couldn't imagine Inventor without iLogic. It just opened up a brand new world and then enable a lot of customization workflows. And then I think for you, I would suggest you probably want to learn Inventor. You have a good foundation of Inventor, and then you can delve into API and iLogic and relatively quickly.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah, so yeah, no worries. I mean, we are here to help, and then we have a pretty active Inventor forums and customization forums.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And back to the original comments about interop with Revit specifically, the immediate focus was definitely geometry and look and feel and visual, but there were some functions implemented to allow you to control that sort of taxonomy and some of the properties. So has anybody got Marcello's contact info? I'm just thinking that John Bagley would be a good person to hook him up with, because John's really the master of all that.
We've got that, Chris. We can hook you up.
We can share that with you afterward, Chris.
Okay. Yeah,
Cool.
because John's not on the call, but he's got all the info you probably need.
Sure. And, I'm not, and I'm up here because I'm not just thinking about myself. What I want to do is, as I learn this tech and as I feel there's a need for it, eventually I would like to preach it to the world, about how this interoperability works and simplify it for others to get them going on it. Because I think there is some roadblocks and some people are a little bit scared to touch Inventor because they're used to Revit. So I'd like to help out in that regard as well. So yeah, you connect me up with whoever you need to connect. Yeah, Kate's got my info, and we'll go from there. Thanks for being so helpful.
All right. So we do want to jump to one more question while we are still on the clock here, and we're going to jump to Nick's question that he posted on the community conversations. The question was, what are some ways to share model-based definitions with the shop floor without using a drawing?
Well, there are a handful there. I mean, you could use Vault and the built-in visualization in there. So DWF would be one, or you could also use 3D PDF, and you could, because the 3D PDF will also contain the model and that good stuff on top of it. So I suppose you could also use Inventor Read Only, and they could just view the files straight up natively, and they would see all that information.
Shared views works as well. I tested it before our meeting here. If you put a model-based definition on a model and create a shared view, that model-based definition goes with it.
Right.
Mike, I'd like to add some color here. So I'm the designer on model-based definition. So, and this has been a very hot topic for years. Everything you guys said was right. I just wanted to point out that yes, 3D PDF and DWF are pretty much the best ways. Mike, you were right on by saying Inventor Read Only is an option. So for those that don't know, Inventor Read Only is basically a free version of Inventor that doesn't allow any editing capability. So your shop floor can install that without consuming a license or anything like that. And Inventor Read Only is the absolute best way to view Inventor data because it's Inventor, and you'll get full visual fidelity. All those other solutions, 3D PDF, DWF, we support JT, shared views, all work, but have some limitations. My recommendation, if it's internal shop floor, you're not worried about intellectual property, definitely go with Inventor Read Only. Shared views is a pretty elegant solution. I'd caution though that shared views do not work with design views. So we encourage anybody using MBD to set up design views to isolate, so you don't have like a porcupine full of annotations all over your model. So you can use design views to capture camera angles and annotation visibility and so forth. Unfortunately, design views are not represented in shared views. So only the active design view that was used on publish shows up with shared views, and we are working to address that, of course.
And the other catch to shared views is obviously it needs to go outside, and then you're viewing to come back in, and the whole date limit and days and stuff. So
and it time bombs. So so there's pros and cons with almost every approach, but for my professional recommendation is definitely Inventor Read Only if that works for you guys.
Oh, Nick's happy.
Glad we helped, Nick. So I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat window at the moment. Let's just scroll up and make sure we got them all.
And we answered all the ones that had come in?
We got the 3 that were on the community conversation website, yes. So let's ask everybody in the group, who's got a question?
Going once.
Anyway, going once, going twice. Mike, I noticed that you're going to be speaking again this year.
Autodesk University, I got
Autodesk University.
2 classes selected, so I'm happy with that.
And what? It wasn't one of them something to do with properties?
Well, now you're putting on me a spot. I don't even know which 2 were accepted. I had put in like 10 classes, so I don't even know which ones. There was one on bill of materials, and was it properties?
Was it Vault Properties? Was that you?
Probably.
The only reason I bring that up is because you probably don't remember, but that is the class that you and I were supposed to do together the year that you had your
Oh,
little
right.
accident.
Yeah, so the story behind that is that Chris and I had presented together the year before, I think.
Yeah.
And then we were going to do a follow-up class. And the day before I was to fly down to Vegas for AU, I decided to put up some Christmas lights. And I slipped and fell off my garage and bonked my head off the driveway and spent a couple weeks in the hospital. So poor Chris got a phone call.
On
Not for
Sunday
me.
morning, about
Somebody had
half
never
hour
met.
before
Yeah.
we left for the airport.
They say, surprise, Mike's not coming. And Chris was put on the spot to present not just his part of it, but also my part of it, which he only had bits and pieces of it. So Chris and I are still talking happily. So
It worked out. It was painful, but it worked out. And you got better. So that was the most important thing.
You got a question in the chat there, Chris
Yep.
and Mike.
I see that. Seeking community insights. What have been the inventor community's biggest pain points?
you mean like Inventor users? I mean, a lot of the biggest pain points have been addressed by Dan and Chris and Johnson over the years. So what the current ones are, I mean, performance is usually a point of contention, but they constantly are working on that.
I won't say it. I'm thinking it, but I won't say it. And Dan is smiling because he knows what I'm thinking. And Johnson is smiling now.
I mean,
too.
if we were to pick biggest pain points, or maybe he's talking about, yeah, Inventor. I don't know.
Yeah, performance, you nailed it, Mike. Again, performance is one of the big ones, and we continue to invest. It's going to be a continuous area that we continue to improve on. Model states was another one that we saw a lot of. They wanted levels of details in parts. That's kind of was one of the notions that we knocked that one off the list. And there was a large number of things. You know, dark theme was on there once upon a time. It bubbled up. We've done a number. I did want to, I couldn't unmute myself earlier. I was like, oh shoot, you're talking about model-based definition. And we talked about rotating drawing dimensions and how they kind of go wonky on you when you rotate a drawing view. There is another alternative. I was just kind of playing with it while everyone was talking. You can recover model-based definition annotations within your 2D drawing. And so ultimately you could rotate your angle and then just do a recovery, and they'll automatically acquire or regenerate the reference geometry. So that's another workaround, not ideal to what was the question that was asked, you know, the top of the hour, but just something that I thought about. And we've also improved the number of the workflows on the sheet format controls for exposing and leveraging those model-based definitions and annotations that you've stored in your models. For those users that are still, you know, leaning on a little bit of a dual approach, you know, putting some PMI inside the models and still creating drawings for revision control or documentation. There's some nice opportunities there as well. So, but thanks for the compliment as well, Mike. I know we're trying to pay attention to the ideas forums and trying to move the needle to continuously improve the product. So thanks for answering that way.
I'm just looking at on the Inventor Ideas discussion forum. So plug there. Definitely a place where if you got some great ideas, put them in there. And I'm just looking here. Number 1, multi-core implemented, smarter diameter implemented, level of detail for parts implemented, and then we finally get to one, aligned orientation for break views, and that's a future consideration. So you guys are just hammering out all the top voted ideas. So now I'm sounding like I'm sucking up. So I better stop with that.
Nick commented, biggest pain point for him is selection of construction lines instead of solid lines in a sketch.
Oh yes, isn't that annoying sometimes? Where you just want a filter to select that. Dan would be awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
I have some comment on that. So currently it doesn't differentiate the line type. So it's based on creation order. So if you create first, and then it default to select that line first. So it's a little bit counterintuitive because you would like it to be the create last, right? Because that's the most current one you are working on. But anyway, so yeah, I have talked to the project team, and we haven't have a good solution yet, but we are aware of this issue, and yeah, let's see what we can do.
I've definitely noticed it more since that option came in to auto project as construction lines. And I don't know if I didn't really notice it before, but now that everything's automatically coming in as construction lines, I find that I'm swearing a little bit more about trying to select the construction lines. So I think his point there is that would fit good into, what's your project, Dan? Fit function form? No.
Just do it.
Just do it. That's it. There we go.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah, we're always looking for usability and productivity improvements, and that fits right along the lines. And again, another plug for the internal community. If you're not a member of the beta, that's a great place to just submit them and throw them in there. We're always, and even here, this forum as well. I'm jotting down some notes as well. So.
And if you're looking to find the beta community, if you go into the Inventor forums, there is a sticky post at the top that contains a link to the beta community. And you can apply to join that anytime.
I just put a couple links in the chat. One is
put
to
that link in the chat as well.
Yeah,
thanks
to
Kate.
the feedback community. And then if you scroll up a little bit, there's a link to that ideas board that people were talking about too.
Yeah. And the main difference is it just has a mutually binding non-disclosure agreement between when you join that community, as opposed to what we can talk a little more freely in that forum, as opposed to the public forums. We can't really necessarily share as much information, and it is protected by a safe harbor statement. In our plans, we might have to pull things back or reserve them to get them more robust and stabilized, or to get a good quality perspective before we fully release. So you might see some things that take shape that aren't necessarily there, and that's kind of the difference between the two forums. I just wanted to explain that too. But this is a great session, Mike. And again, Chris, thanks guys. This is really great. You guys are really awesome.
So Mike, I think I'm going to take control of things again here because we're getting a little bit close to the end, but I want to say that any questions that have not been answered or any questions that you think of after this session, please add them to the community conversations post where this session was advertised, and we will continue to follow up on those. Is that correct, Kate? That's where they should post those questions. Yep. And so we will continue to follow up on those.
I'm putting that link in the chat right now, but you'll all get an email with a reminder of that link in the video. After.
And we'll continue to follow that thread, and any new questions that come up, we will address those. So, all right, I'm going to share my screen again here, and I can find the right screen. Is everybody seeing my slides? Okay. So now that we've answered everybody's questions, if you're looking for other ways to connect with us and engage with us in the community, we have some resources for you. So you can always explore the various Autodesk communities, including the global network of user groups in the Autodesk Group Network. Global network of over 180 user groups and online groups. You can build all kinds of relationships in there. We have our industry focused communities, which are less product focused and more industry focused. And we have a lot of great resources in those sites as well. Of course, the Autodesk forums, that's everybody is familiar with those, I believe. Answer questions, ask questions, meet new people. And we also have our Twitter and Facebook accounts. Autodesk Community, or at Autodesk Community on Facebook and Twitter. And under the Autodesk Community on Facebook, we have several new Facebook groups that you can join. I believe there's one for Revit, one for Fusion 360, Inventor, Vault, and AutoCAD. We want to thank you for attending our revitalized community conversations and our first Ask the Expert session. We do plan to have some more of these. We welcome your feedback about today's session, and I believe Kate will be emailing a survey to everyone who's in this session today. So please let us know what you think, what you liked, what you didn't like, what we can improve. And continue to stay connected with us in the Autodesk community through the various channels that I've mentioned, and we hope to see you the next time. Stay tuned to the Community Conversations website. We will be letting you know when the next Ask the Expert is coming out and what product it will be featuring. So thank you everyone for coming.